Welcome back to the channel. This will be the best wildcard team for Game Week 18 in FPL. And before I begin, I want to wish you all a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. I hope you have a great time with your family and friends. And if you've got a few minutes to spare, this will be a great video for you to have everything you need to know for the upcoming deadline and beyond, because there's so much to discuss in FPL with Saka injured for several weeks, possibly even months, and we need the best replacements for him at different price points, which I did cover in my transits video. But I'll also talk about the best players in each position with this wildcard team. So even if you aren't activating the wildcard this week, it will still be very helpful towards your transfer plans and building the best team possible over Christmas and until the end of the season. Smash the like button and subscribe if you're new. If you enjoy my content, our aim is to get this to the 200 likes and to keep on pushing towards 31,000 subscribers and beyond. It costs nothing and goes a long way to support my channel, and there are many other links in the description below for my Twitter and Instagram, DylanRCM, the Discord server, FPL League, Drafthound, as well as Spotify. Without further ado, let's jump straight into it. My squad value is 103.8 million, but in terms of spending power, by removing every single player from my team, I would have 101.9 million to spend and build this 15-man squad. It will be different for everybody watching. I'll discuss players at different price points, so if you've got even more money in the bank, you can make a few upgrades, and if you can't afford certain players, I'll discuss the best alternatives who will remain very competitive despite their cheaper price tag. Let's start off with the two goalkeepers and discuss the best players in FPL. Robert Sanchez is the 5th highest scoring goalkeeper in FPL up until now. And if I'm building a wildcard team, it's between Robert Sanchez or David Raya, a Spaniard between the sticks, but Onana remains a decent choice, and Jordan Pickford has kept 5 clean sheets out of the last 6 matches, including against Chelsea and Arsenal, so Everton can be very reliable defensively, and on their current form, you'd back them to keep a clean sheet against most teams in the Premier League, maybe even the likes of Man City and Liverpool, although we know the problems going on at Man City right now. And other goalkeepers to consider might include Sells, as Nottingham Forest have decent long-term fixtures, but if you look at the next 3 to 4, they're still not particularly great, but I certainly wouldn't mind having that Nottingham Forest defensive coverage. But I'm going for Robert Sanchez, who for me is the best way of covering that Chelsea defence. Levi Colwill in the centre-back position would be another option who I've got in my own team, but Robert Sanchez is slightly better because of bonus points and the saves potential in his case, so he does make a very good first choice option, and you don't need to spend that much money in this position. And a lot of you will be interested in Alisson Becker, but if you do have the money, I'd rather go for Virgil van Dijk or Trent in the defensive line. And then in the midfield, you've got so many options. Salah, of course, goes without saying, and Arne Slot could be a great option with the assistant manager chip. But the backup goalkeeper remains Fabianski, but there are 2 others worth considering. Fraser Forster, although I said back in the day, I just wouldn't go for him because Spurs are terrible defensively. And the other one who I'm a bit more intrigued by is Martin Dubravka, but Nick Pope could be back fairly soon, within the next month or so. So that'd be a very short-term pick, and Fabianski is even cheaper and makes for a very decent backup choice until the end of the season. This might sound contradictory, but I don't think Trent Alexander-Arnold is worth that hefty price tag, and he actually went up in price overnight to 7.1 million. But the performance against Spurs was incredible. The cross he put in for the first goal, I mean, that's what he's certainly capable of. And against Leicester a couple of years ago on Boxing Day, he got a 24-point haul. So could he replicate that this season? He almost certainly can. And Leicester City are conceding chance after chance. So Liverpool clean sheet, a Trent assist and some bonus points is certainly on the table. But with the changes to the bonus point system this season, I do think it makes Trent less appealing than he was a couple of years ago. But he's still a very good choice if you've got the money available to you. And I think Liverpool are worth covering defensively, although in recent weeks they have shown frailties, conceding twice to Southampton, 3 to Newcastle, 3 to Tottenham, and also twice to Fulham, albeit with 10 men. But I think Trent is still worth the extra millions over Van Dijk if money is no issue to you. Otherwise, you certainly can go for the Dutchman with that set-piece threat and the aerial prowess, and he can still match Trent in most game weeks. So you don't have to go for him or even any Liverpool defender, but that would be my recommendation on the wild card. It'd be a nice differential, especially in weeks like this where Leicester City are there for the taking. Next up though, I'm going for another premium, but you don't need to go overboard in this position and have 3 or 4 premium defenders. I think that would be excessive, but you can go for Gabriel or Jurriën Timber, and my preference remains with a Brazilian centre-back with a set-piece threat. He scores goals so consistently and gets so many chances with every single corner. Arsenal look like they could score, and Gabriel will be the main beneficiary towards it, and he can get bonus points even if he doesn't get a goal or assist, but only with Arsenal keeping a clean sheet. And with no Bukayo Saka up until February or March, I think the likes of Gabriel will be crucial FPL-wise and also for the Arsenal team to keep those clean sheets and get those results and really push Liverpool and Chelsea until the end of the campaign. And Gabriel is one of my favourite defenders, arguably even the very best one actually, I have to say that, but it's certainly up for debate, and Trent has the assist threat and he might be more exciting over this Christmas period. But let's go for some cheaper options now in this position, and one of them is going to be a 4.3 million defender who scored against Tottenham and Man United this season, and that's going to be Howson. But if you do have the extra millions, I think Kirkes is worthwhile, but with my limited budget, I'm not able to do that, and it also facilitates Gabriel and Trent in this position. So I have kind of settled with the Spaniard who's got that goal threat from set pieces. He's a very big lad, and I do think he's a very decent centre-back for his age. He's only going to get better, and Bournemouth sit 5th in the Premier League table with 4 wins and a draw out of the last 5 games. They've been very impressive this season, and their manager Iraola has done an incredible job. But let's actually finish this defensive line with 2 other options who haven't been covered that much in my recent videos. Well, this guy has in my transfer tips video, but not in the wildcard ones. Daniel Munoz is a very good choice here, and he's now back from suspension. He is a bit of a yellow card magnet though. You've got to be careful about that. And even for Colombia, he got suspended for the Copa America final in the summer because he got a red card against Uruguay in the semis. So Daniel Munoz can be frustrating at times, but he has 2 goals and 2 assists to his name this season, and he's got 7 big chances. Check out the transfer tips video for a breakdown of all of his stats. They are simply incredible for a wing back, and Crystal Palace have very appealing fixtures for the next 8 game weeks. But let's now go for a budget defender, and once again, a bit like the Howson to Kirkes debate, if you've got the extra funds, I'd highly recommend Anthony Robinson, but otherwise, if you have to go for a cheaper choice, I think Joachim Andersen or Timothy Castagna will make for a very decent 4th/5th defender, and the rotation between these options like Howson, Munoz and Castagna works very well, as I'll show you using FPL Team. So I'm very happy with this defensive line. You've got a bit of everything, good fixtures, attacking potential from Gabriel and Trent, and also Daniel Munoz to be fair, and Howson can score from time to time in terms of set pieces, and Castagna can actually match Robinson in most game weeks, but I have to admit the American has the assist threat which the Belgian certainly lacks, and after the next 8 to 10 weeks, once Tete is back, he might be the first choice right back once again, so this is a short-term punt, but whilst the Dutchman is injured, I think Castagna is a very decent choice at 4.2 million. I don't like using the terminology of essential and a must-have, but Mohamed Salah is probably that at this moment in time. He's just scoring and assisting in every single bloody game. That's 9 consecutive game weeks with a return. He hasn't blanked since game week 7. You could argue, oh well, he technically did against Everton. I mean, we need Storm Dara and outside forces to pretty much tackle Salah. The Gandhi curse coupled with the weather, that's the only way you can stop this guy at the moment. Or maybe a Christmas picture. Maybe Salah, go on. Help the rest of the league out here, please. But I have to say Salah is an amazing option, and he's easily worth 50 million with his current form, a bit like Haaland was in the first 5 game weeks of the season. And the only way I could see myself really pushing towards Haaland is if Salah gets injured. So in the meantime, I think he has to be in this midfield, and he's by far the best option in the game. With a captaincy, he could be an easy permanent captain until his form dips or something happens, or maybe just the end of the season before we go into the next campaign and see if anything changes, because Salah has been so consistent during his Liverpool career, and he has established himself as the best right winger of all time in the Premier League era. But let's now go to another promising player who's got the potential to be up there with the greats, and that's going to be Cole Palmer. But it's going to be a bit weird to see no Saka in this kind of template midfield, and things are going to open up big time, and that's where we're going to have to talk about those Saka replacements. But the easiest ones would be Salah or Palmer. If you don't have one of them, what are you waiting for? Try to find a way to make that happen, even if you have to downgrade somebody else. I think Salah and Palmer are just great options in this position. Set and forgets for the rest of the season, or until they get injured or suspended, or maybe a blank game week. You just never know what can happen in FPL. But these two are definitely in the top 2 spots, with Salah in first. And I think Palmer can rival the Egyptian in certain game weeks, but you have to pick your moments wisely, otherwise you could get burned. But thankfully we can go for cheaper options now, and we don't have to go for 10 million or more expensive midfielders. But the problem is, who do you replace Saka with? And I'll be honest, I'm in that same conundrum myself. And I've also got the Cunha situation. Is he going to get banned or not? And that'll be covered in my team selection video on Christmas Day and the Boxing Day deadline stream. But at the moment, I think it's between the likes of Maddison, Kulusevski, Son, Foden, Bruno Fernandes, Amad Diallo, Rodgers, and Ismaila Sarr. I think they're the best replacements. And there's probably a few others I forgot to mention. There are too many choices. But in terms of standouts, I don't think there are too many. I think Bruno Fernandes is the safest pick to replace Bukayo Saka, but I'm going to go for a very risky one here on the wildcard, and that's why later in this video, using FPL Team, I'll show you a different wildcard draft with a few alternative picks, because this one is very risky, and I definitely admit that. That's going to be James Maddison. He might be benched against Nottingham Forest, but that's 97 points for the season. He can come off the bench and score, a bit like Diogo Jota, which I like a lot, but he can also be subbed off very early, like he was against Liverpool, around 57 minutes, despite scoring in that game, and that is a major cause for concern. Kulusevski has been Spurs' best player this season, but at the same time, I don't think he offers the same consistency with goals and assists as James Maddison, but to be fair, Kulusevski has scored in the last 5 games across all competitions, but can he sustain this? Maybe he can. He is a quality player. He can play on the right and also down the middle, where Maddison operates, and if that happens, we'll see Brennan Johnson reintroduced into the team, and that's another one to consider as a Saka replacement, and you save a lot of money in the process. Heung-min Son on the left, Solanke up front, and Spurs will ultimately share the goals around. So let me know your thoughts on this Maddison pick. I do recognise it's very risky, and you don't need to go for him. And other midfielders include Mbeumo, who is in my own team. He's been very consistent this season, and also Enzo Fernandez, who's been ticking along nicely. But I do have Robert Sanchez here in this wildcard team, and in terms of Chelsea attackers, Palmer and Jackson remain the best options by far, and despite how good Enzo has been, maybe Jacob Murphy could be another one, Anthony Gordon, we have so many different options to consider, but I would look at somebody like Maddison or Bruno Fernandes as a direct Saka replacement. But let's now go for cheaper options, which might be a bit easier to go to, and it's not going to be as contentious as this Maddison one, but as a differential over Christmas, Ismaila Sarr is in great form, he's got decent underlying stats, and he could be a fantastic option with those fixtures coming up. I wouldn't go overboard with Palace and triple up on them, but I think 1 or 2 is the sweet spot, and my favourite options right now would be Daniel Munoz and Ismaila Sarr, but Eze could come into the equation, maybe Jean-Philippe Mateta up front, especially in fixtures like Southampton, but there can also be a rotation between the strikers with such a quick turnaround between Boxing Day and the 29th of December. But the final midfielder is going to be a cheap option. He has been very consistent since Ruben Amorim's come in, and he's also been mentioned a lot in my recent wildcard videos. That's going to be Amad Diallo. I wouldn't go for him and Bruno Fernandes in the same midfield though, so if you pick one, I'd probably avoid the other, because Man United are way too inconsistent, and that's where Amad Diallo can offer great value. You start him from time to time because you don't fully trust Man United, but his consistency is spectacular for a budget midfielder, and the big absentee, so to speak, would be Morgan Rodgers. I think he'll blank against Newcastle, but long term, I think it's worth having the Aston Villa talisman, and he's by far the best Villa asset, by the way. I wouldn't go for Watkins or Duran, as covered in my Transfers podcast, but this midfield has a balance. You've got the 2 premiums that are pretty much essential. You've got a very consistent goal and assist man in James Maddison, and a differential in Ismaila Sarr, who can be one of the best midfielders in the next couple of weeks. Why, oh bloody why, did I sell Isak at the wrong time and buy Saka at the wrong time? My decisions of buying and selling those 2 players specifically have cost me 40, 50 points, I think. I'm not even exaggerating, but the swings in FPL can be brutal, and Isak, I've been bullish on him for several months now, and he's just doing even better than I expected. That hat-trick against Ipswich Town was his first in a Newcastle shirt, and there could be 1 or 2 more by the end of the season, because Newcastle are getting into a groove now with 6 wins across the last 10 games across all competitions, and Isak is pivotal. If he can stay injury-free, I don't see any better forward. Erling Haaland over the next 3, maybe, but I think Isak is the best long-term option in terms of value. He's on penalties, he's a talisman, he's getting bonus points every single week, and he's fixture-proof, so I think he's the best forward in the game. There is a close second for me, although you could argue Isak is way better. I think that's certainly a debate. But Nicholas Jackson is still a very solid and consistent option. And I think Chelsea are worth doubling up on offensively. You don't need to do that, but they still have one of the very best attacks alongside Tottenham and Liverpool right now. And I think Jackson is a very consistent option at this price point. And I think he's a set and forget option until he gets suspended maybe, which could be in the next 2 game weeks. But if he avoids a yellow card in that time frame, he will be suspension free unless he gets a red. But that's a different story. I think Jackson is a good choice and he's the second best forward in the game, only behind the in-form Isak, who has been outstanding recently. But the third and final choice won't be Gabriel Jesus, but I certainly don't mind that as a short-term punt, as highlighted in my Transfers podcast. I'm going to go for a more reliable option in Chris Wood, who was in my team from Game Week 1, and I sold him a couple of weeks ago, and there is a slight regret about it. Not to the same level as Isak, that's a different story, but Chris Wood gives you a goal, and then a bonus point or 2, and in most occasions, he's going to get free maximum bonus points. That is ideal for such a cheap striker. And Matheus Cunha, by the way, at a similar price has been phenomenal. He's got more points than Isak at this point of the season, but with the potential ban, which we don't know when is going to take place, and you've got the upcoming fixtures for Wolves, I don't think Cunha is worth investment. He might be worth holding on to, which is a different story, but I wouldn't be looking to buy him in right now. And in terms of other forwards, who are you looking at? Ivanilson, I'm less keen on him than I was a couple of weeks ago, if I'm being completely honest. João Pedro and Welbeck will be decent choices once Welbeck is fit, but at the same time, I think they can offer a lot of frustration in terms of injuries and also inconsistencies, because Brighton win 60, draw 60, and lose 60. You just don't know what you're going to get from the Seagulls. So I'd probably stick with Isak, Jackson, and a reliable option like Chris Wood. But with his squad depth, you can afford a punt up front. And who's better over Christmas than Jesus? You let me know down in the comment section below. I think Gabriel Jesus could be a fantastic option in the short term, but I don't trust him enough to really make it stick for the next couple of months. Hopefully I'm proven wrong and he can catapult Arsenal to a very strong position and put in these performances, getting a goal every 2 or 3 games and getting those nice touches, flicks, linking up the play and getting the best out of the wingers in Trossard, Martinelli, or whoever plays there, because they could be a signing in January, one would hope. But that is the 15-man squad on the wildcard. But that is not all. I'm going to show you the captaincy and the starting 11, as well as alternatives if you aren't happy with the likes of Maddison in this team. It goes without saying that in most game weeks, I'd start Robert Sanchez over Lucas Fabianski, but this would be one of the few occasions where I would consider starting the West Ham shot stopper with that Southampton away fixture. But could West Ham go there and concede a few goals? Yeah, they certainly could, because the Hammers are very inconsistent, but it might be worth a punt to start Fabianski, if you can call it a punt. The defensive line would include Trent, Gabriel and Howson, with Palmer, Ahmad, Salah and Maddison completing the midfield. Jackson, Chris Wood and Isak up front is, for me, the best front line in the game. You could also put Erling Haaland in that equation, Duran in the short term, or Gabriel Jesus. I think that's certainly viable, but this is my favourite front three for the next couple of months. And the bench includes Sanchez, Sarr, Munoz and Timothy Castagna. And if you've got extra funds, I think Castagna to Robinson is worth the extra 0.6 million. You could also do something like Howson up to Kirkes. I think that's certainly worthwhile. Sanchez to Raya, I wouldn't mind, but it's not absolutely necessary. And if you do that, I'd still want one Chelsea defender like Levi Colwill in your defensive line. And in the midfield, apart from Maddison, I mentioned a lot of names earlier. Bruno Fernandes would be one of them. Diogo Jota or Luis Diaz could certainly be a decent choice, but they're also minutes risks, just like James Maddison. Anthony Gordon might be worth a punt, but I still think Isak is by far the best Newcastle attacker. Jacob Murphy as a budget option isn't too shabby, to be honest. And you've also got the likes of Morgan Rogers, who's probably the best midfielder to not make this team, at least in terms of pure value. And up front, I mentioned some of those names, like Gabriel Jesus. He's my favourite punt over Christmas. And apart from that, I mean, look, there's going to be even more options, but we'd be here all bloody day, wouldn't we? Let's actually go to a few different alternatives, and that includes Bruno Fernandes instead of Maddison. Now, on FPL.team, it says I'm over 0.2 million in terms of over budget, but that's actually not the case. I've got enough money to build this team, and the other options would include Morgan Rogers coming in for Amad Diallo. Ismaila Sarr keeps a spot in this team, and I think pretty much the rest of it is exactly the same. So most of the changes are in the midfield, and you could also talk about the other options that I highlighted earlier. You can include some of them in this team very easily. Maybe Martin Dubravka as your backup goalkeeper, but I think that's probably not worth it in my opinion. Lewis Hall, I think, is a good long-term option, but over the next 3 game weeks, I think Newcastle will concede goals, and I don't think Lewis Hall will be that appealing FPL-wise, not at least until Game Week 21 or 22. But let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. Who are you captaining? Is it even worth talking about the captaincy at this point? I mean, Cole Palmer can do well against Fulham in that London derby, but I think Salah against Leicester. The only concern there would be minutes. Does he get subbed off early? Could he be rested? I don't think he would be, because he's far too important to that Liverpool attack. And Liverpool need to keep building upon this momentum and not give the likes of Arsenal any chance of staying within touching distance, because they can go on a run despite not having Saka, and I think they'll struggle over the coming weeks, but you just never know. And they've got the depth, at least defensively, to compete with Liverpool for the next couple of months. It's going to be an interesting season. Liverpool are in pole position, and they have been the best team in the Premier League so far. Let's see if there are any twists and turns in the second half of the Premier League season. And I think that concludes it. With the captaincy, the only other thing is, do we triple captain Salah? Now, in my case, I used it way back. I'm happy with my result, but could you maybe save it for a double game week like 24 or 25 if Liverpool and Everton goes into that time slot? That could definitely be an option, but Leicester at home is a great opportunity in terms of single game week captaincy, and Salah could go ballistic in just 60 or 70 minutes, but he could be subbed off early, and it wouldn't completely surprise me if he was benched, if I'm being honest, but I do think he starts, gets good minutes, and does the damage, and then he's subbed off early. We have a quick turnaround between deadlines as well. On the 26th and the 29th of December, we've got different deadlines, and all of it will be covered on this channel. So because of that and the minutes risk, I might say maybe not in terms of the triple captaincy, but if you are feeling it, don't let me discourage you, because Leicester are shocking defensively. They ship 3 to Wolves at home. They ship 4 also to Newcastle the other week. So they are definitely there for the taking, and Liverpool can make it 4, 5 or 6-0 at Anfield in a couple of days' time. If you haven't already, check out the link in the description below for Drafthound. I'd highly recommend it. And many of you have been signing up using my link, and I've personally been using this tool for over a year now. On the left-hand side, you can see the best wildcard team by Drafthound, and they've gone for Kepa and Dubravka, which is certainly very interesting in terms of choice of goalkeepers. But my defensive line is very similar to theirs. They've gone for Saliba, Timber and Howson, with Salah, Palmer, Diaz and Amad Diallo in the midfield, and then Isak, Gakpo and Havertz up front. And I think over the coming weeks, Gabriel Jesus will replace Havertz in terms of predicted points and also in this wildcard algorithm. And the bench also comprised of Mbumo, who is still a very solid choice, Tosin and Mikalenko, who I forgot to mention, to be fair. I sold him 2 bloody weeks ago, and he gets 7 points against Arsenal and Chelsea. He is amazing value at 4.3 million. Ashley Young, when he's back from suspension, is also worth investment, and Jordan Pickford in goal. Despite Everton's tough run of fixtures, they can go to any single stadium and keep a clean sheet. They've got one of the best defences in the Premier League when they're that organised and committed to the cause, and Sean Dyche knows what he's doing. He is maybe a terrorist in football terms, but he gets the job done at times, and you got to give him credit, and the same goes for Everton. So that is the best wildcard team, not just my one, but also Drafthound. Do you prefer this? I mean, let me know. Maybe I'm a fraud. Maybe it just doesn't really matter what I say. So just tell me, and we can talk about it in the live chat and have a bloody laugh. Thank you very much for watching this video and listening to this podcast. If you enjoyed it or found it useful, then be sure to smash the like button and subscribe for new. Our aim is to get this video to over 200 likes and to keep on pushing towards 31,000 subscribers and beyond. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram, DylanRCM, and check all the links in the description below for my Patreon and the championships, for early access to my videos, amongst many other perks, the Discord server, FPL League Drafthound, as well as Spotify. And you can also find me on Reddit and Blue Sky. Just type in FPL Dylan or DylanRCM and you'll find me very easily across all social media platforms. I wish you all the best of luck for Game Week 18. Have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Enjoy the football, if that's even possible, and I'll see you very soon for the Boxing Day deadline stream.